The Catalonia Offensive was part of the Spanish Civil War. The Nationalist army started the offensive on December 23, 1938, and rapidly conquered Republican-held Catalonia with Barcelona. Barcelona was captured on January 26, 1939. The Republican government headed for the French border. Thousands of people fleeing the Nationalists also crossed the frontier in the following month to be placed in internment camps. Franco closed the border with France by February 10, 1939. Background: after its defeat at the Battle of the Ebro, the Republican army was broken and would never recover. The Republicans had lost most of their armament and experienced units. Furthermore, on October 1938, the Republican government agreed to withdraw the volunteers of the international brigades. On the other hand, the Nationalists received new supplies of ammunition, weapons and aircraft from Germany. Furthermore, after the Munich Agreement, the hope of an intervention of the Western democracies in order to aid the Republic against Germany and Italy vanished. France had closed the frontier again in mid-June 1938 and froze Republican financial assets in French banks. Opposing forces, Nationalists. At the beginning of December, the rebel faction concentrated an army group, the Army of the North, of 300,000–340,000 men led by the General Fidel de Villa in order to conquer Catalonia. The Nationalists assembled the best divisions all along the front from the Pyrenees to the Mediterranean. Along the Segre, the Nationalists deployed Muñoz Granz's army of Urgel, Garcia Vallino's army of Maestrazgo and Moscado's Aragon army, in the confluence of the Segre with the Ebro. Gambra's Italian Cuerpo Legionario Italiano of 4 divisions and Solchaga's Army Corps of Navarre, and in the Ebro the Yegue's Moroccan Corps. The Nationalists also had, according to Beaver, 300 tanks, more than 500 aircraft and 1,400 cannon. Republicans opposing the Francoists. The Republicans had Colonel Peria's East Army and Colonel Juan Modesto's Ebro Army under the command of General Juan Hernández Saravia, commander of the Oriental Regions Army Group, with 220,000–300,000 men, many unarmed, 106 airplanes, 250 cannons and 40 tanks. The Soviet government agreed to send to Catalonia a shipment of 250 aircraft, 250 tanks and 650 cannons. But the shipment did not reach Bordeaux until January 15, and only a small part of it crossed the border. Furthermore, because of the international isolation of the Republic and the lack of food, the morale of the government troops and civil population in the Republican zone was very low. The people only wished the end of the war. Just let it be over. It doesn't matter how it ends, but let it end now. Battle. Nationalist Offensive. The Nationalist Offensive was planned for the December 10th, but was postponed to December 23rd. On December 23, the Italians and the Navarreses crossed the Segre at Mequinenza, broke the Republican lines and advanced 16 kilometers, but they were stopped by the V and 15th Republican Corps led by Lister on December 25. On the left flank, Muñoz Granz and Garcia Vallino advanced towards Cervera and Artesa, but they were blocked by the 26th Republican Division. On the south, Yegue's troops were held back by the Ebro's floodwater. The Republicans had stopped the first Nationalist attack. Nevertheless, they had lost 40 aircraft in the first 10 days of the battle. On January 3, Solchaga attacked Borjas Blancas. Muñoz Granz and Garcia Vallino occupied Artesa, and Yegue crossed the Ebro. Moscado attacked from Lerida and the Italians occupied Borjas Blancas on January 5. The same day, the Republican army started a surprise attack in Extremadura towards Peñarollo in order to divert nationalist forces, but the offensive was halted after a few days and the nationalist offensive in Catalonia continued. On January 9, the Mosquedo's Aragon Army Corps joined Gambra at Mollerussa and broke the northern part of the front. The VN 15th Republican Corps collapsed and retreated in disorder. On January 15, the Aragon and Maestrazgo Corps conquered Cervera, and the Moroccan Corps, after a one-day march of 50 kilometers, occupied Tarragona. By this day, the Nationalists had conquered a third of the Catalonia, had taken 23,000 prisoners and killed 5,000 Republican soldiers. Fall of Barcelona. The Republican government then tried to organize the defense of Barcelona, ordered the general mobilization of all men to 45 and militarized all the industry. Nevertheless, the successive defensive lines fell. The Republican forces were outnumbered 6-1 and the Nationalist Air Force bombed Barcelona every day. It became clear that the defense of the city was impossible. On January 22, Solchaga and Yag reached the Llobregat only a few miles west of Barcelona. Muñoz Grans and Garcia Vallino attacked Sabadell and Terrassa, and Gambra advanced to Badalona. The Chief of Staff of the Republican Army, Rojo, told the Republican Prime Minister Negron that the front had ceased to exist, so the government abandoned Barcelona after releasing most of its prisoners. A large part of the Barcelona population fled from the city as well. On January 24, Garcia Vallino occupied Manresa, and on January 25 the Nationalist vanguard occupied the Tibidabo in the outskirts of Barcelona. The Nationalists finally occupied Barcelona on January 26, and there were 5 days of looting by the Llegs Regulars and extrajudicial killings. Retreat. After the occupation of Barcelona, the Nationalist troops, tired from the long marches, slowed their advance but soon resumed their offensive, pursuing the retreating columns of Republican soldiers and civilians. On February 1, Negron proposed, in the last meeting of the Cortes in the Figueres castle, capitulation with the sole condition of respecting the lives of the vanquished and the holding of a plebiscite so the Spanish people could decide the form of government, but Franco did not accept. On February 2, the Nationalists entered Girona, arrived within 50 kilometers of the frontier on February 3, occupied Figueres on February 8, and Rojo ordered the Republican troops to withdraw to the French frontier. Hundreds of thousands of Republican soldiers, women, children and old men marched to the French frontier on foot and on carts, buses and trucks through bitterly cold sleet and snow. The retreat was covered by units of the Republican Army, which carried out hit-and-run attacks and ambushes. The Nationalist Air Force and the Condor Legion bombed and strafed the roads leading to France. On January 28, the French government announced that civilians could cross the frontier, and on the 5th of February, the Republican soldiers as well. Between 400,000 and 500,000 Republican refugees crossed the frontier, among them the President of the Republic, the Prime Minister and the Chief of Staff of the Republican Army. Negron returned to Spain on February 9, but Azana and Rojo refused to return. By February 9, the Nationalists reached the frontier, and on the following day the last units of Modesto's army of the Ebro crossed into France, and the Nationalists sealed the frontier. Aftermath, military and political consequences. With the fall of Catalonia, the Republic lost the second largest city of the country. The Catalan war industry and a large part of its army. On February 27, Azana resigned, and the same day France and the United Kingdom recognized the Francoist government. Further military resistance became impossible and the war was lost for the Republic, despite the fact that 30% of Spain was still under Republican control after the offensive, and Prime Minister Juan Negrin insisted that the Republic could continue to resist. The Catalonia autonomy was abolished. The Catalan language, the Sardana and Catalan Christian names were forbidden. All Catalan newspapers were requisitioned and the forbidden books retired and burned. Even the inscriptions on tombs in the Montjuïc cemetery commemorating Durruti, Ascaso and Ferrer-i-Guardia were removed. Fate of the Republican refugees. The Republican exiles were interned in 15 improvised camps by the French government in places such as Argelès, Gurs, Rivesaltes and Venette. The living conditions in the camps were very harsh. In the first 6 months, 14,672 refugees died from malnutrition or dysentery. The French government encouraged the refugees to return, and by the end of 1939 between 70,000 and 180,000 refugees returned to Spain, but 300,000 never returned. Many fled to the Soviet Union, USA and Canada, and Great Britain, Belgium and other European countries. Many others managed to reach Latin America seeking asylum. Nevertheless, at least 140,000 refugees remained in France and 19,000 in the French colonies of the North Africa. After the fall of France, 10,000–15,000 refugees were detained by the Nazis and deported to concentration camps. Another 10,000 joined the French resistance and more than 2,000 joined the Free French forces.